Welcome to Getting Real with Josh Boyer, the show that embraces radical vulnerability and authenticity. Josh creates a judgment-free zone for his guests to share openly and candidly. Listen in as they discuss life, philosophy, passion, drive, empowerment, and purpose. Join us as we seek to leave our world better than we found it and send ripples of positive, lasting change out into the world.
Here we go. We are on recording. I'm here with the certified health nut, Troy Casey. And like I explained to him right now before we started, I know very little about Troy, which is intentional. I know that he is probably one of the most beautiful men I've ever met in real life. Used to be a model for Versace. And the way I found him, going on social media, I've been starting a lot of men's work for the first time in my life. And that's how I found Man Tribe, and I found you, and I was like, wow, I got to talk to this guy. And it just so happens we're both in LA, so I was like, this is perfect. So yeah, I want you to share your story with the world, man, like where your life started, go into your modeling stuff, and then how this all came to be, the certified health nut. And I'd love to hear about your ayahuasca journey that you just went on. So whatever you feel like sharing, let's do it.
All right, cool. Let me see how concise I can be.
Yeah.
Okay, I was born in 1965 in Connecticut. My parents were fighting physically at that stage of the game. They met my stepfather along the way, I think hitchhiking. He became a family friend, and my mom couldn't take the arguments at my house for very much longer. That was about 1967, the summer of love. My stepfather took my mom out to San Francisco for the Haight-Ashbury district of San Francisco, the whole hippie movement.
Yeah.
So that was the beginning of my life. Think different is kind of imprinted in, that consciousness of me. My parents were hippies. And then grew up on the East Coast for a while, and then my parents got into trouble with the FBI. They were moving some hashish, and my stepdad, and so he was facing incarceration. So my family split up. He left the country, and I went out with some of their friends in San Francisco. I subsequently, eventually became a ward of the state. I was on my own, and then I got in some trouble. I got busted with a sheet of acid when I was 17 in Northern California. So I got put away. I was incarcerated as a youth for the last half of my my childhood year. So 17. I got let out when I was 18. So luckily I got arrested before I was an adult. Otherwise, this would be a completely different conversation. And so went through juvenile hall. Really rehabbed myself, because the penitentiary system is not designed to really rehab humans. They're really there. So I just educated myself. I read Dostoevsky. I read the classics. Made sure that my schooling was up to snuff. So when I got out, it was very easy to graduate from regular high school. Right. So did that. Went to college for a while. Didn't know who I was, like most people, thinking I just need to be making money. That's who I am, right? So college, science and math makes more money, so let me go in that direction. I had to make up a bunch of math that I had missed, so that put me about 3 years on the undergrad, situation. And so I was on the slow track to nowhere, basically, in community college, and studied a lot of mathematics and Spanish, and aced some courses, and really enjoyed that part of my schooling. And then from there, somebody offered me, to start modeling. And I was living in San Diego at the time, and quickly moved up to LA, and then I left for Milan. That was 1989. It was about 4 years after I was out of high school, and 4 or 5 years after I was out of high school. And
how'd that happen? How did they just saw that you were beautiful, or like, hey, you want to be a model? Sure.
I mean, yeah, the scouts had people out there, whether it was in a mall or a department store. Yeah. Hey, you ever thought of modeling? And I remember this guy from LA Models. Actually, my friend told me this story. He walked up to me and he's like, hey, have you ever thought about being modeling? And I turned to him and I said, what are you, a faggot? I mean, that's my Neanderthal, mentality back when I was, I grew up on the street. I was tough. It's like, hey, what do you want?
Yeah.
And so I laugh at that now, but I got into that industry, and it's funny, that industry was full of sexual dysfunction and kind of misfits, and I fit perfectly in because I had my own misfit, things going on, and so from there I started modeling. I had some success. I did 4 Versace campaigns. I really gave it the go-getter spirit because there were a lot of homosexual gatekeepers in that industry.
Really?
And I don't suck dick and I don't kiss ass. So those are games I just don't play very well, and or at all. And so I was only able to get so far, but I was able to manipulate and become friends with other people in different areas, and keep myself in good shape and aesthetically, pleasing. That really just comes down to symmetry and genetics. So it's not that, that's just a gift that I was given. Yeah. And so I started studying nutrition early on because I had my own digestive issues. So your curse is your gift. So my digestive issues for the past 30 years are the one thing that's kept me focused on getting better and better with my health. And since then I've become a certain level of expert, or had a certain level of expertise in navigating my own gut microbiome and my own digestion and my own health ultimately. Yeah. And so that was 1989 or so. I got into modeling, had some success, started studying nutrition, got into fasting, moved back to Miami, bought a juicer, got into juicing, got into juice fasting, noticed the results immediately. I mean, if you want to look 10 years younger, do a 10-day juice cleanse,
True story.
And I look in the mirror and I was like, oh my God. So I was hooked. That was 30 years ago. So from there, I had a lot of success as a Versace model. I was partying extensively. Drugs and alcohol are basically free and everywhere in that culture. Nightclubs and modeling go hand in hand. And drugs and alcohol go hand in hand with all that partying and stuff. And so I became really good at partying, and then I had to sober up from that. I wanted to move to Los Angeles and start an acting career. The money chasing in modeling, because that's the only reason I got into modeling in the first place, was the money. And when the money didn't really show up consistently, it was kind of sporadically. It was great money when you made it, but there wasn't always a lot of money, consistent money.
What is it? Like, what's good money for, if you're a Versace model, what's the standard, of what you're can look to make per year if you're a good model? I don't even know what constitutes a good model. I don't even know why I asked that.
I mean, I guess it's all subjective.
Right.
It's really all subjective. If you make $5,000 a day, your agent takes 20% off of that. That's a decent day's work.
Yeah.
Right. But how many of those days out of the year are you going to get? I mean, everyone's competing and struggling for these same jobs. Yeah. And so unless you're sucking dick and kissing ass, I didn't really see. There's definitely ways that men could get work without going down that road.
Yeah.
And I think there's been plenty of successful men in the past. It was just for me that there was so much game playing. And maybe it was because I didn't have the incredible success that just my genetics was getting me through the door. And I was just unwilling to play any kind of psychological games, codependent pleasing and all that shit. It's I didn't give a fuck. I put my resume together. It stands on itself. What do you got for me? Oh, you don't have anything for me? All right. That's understandable. So it was a great learning experience. Weird industry to be in. Great learning experience. Great education traveling. Better than my college education traveling. Yeah. So much gratitude for it. I don't want to come off ungrateful whatsoever. So learned about nutrition. Then I had to sober up. I moved to LA, started an acting career, did a lot of stand-up comedy, and I knew that I couldn't build an acting career. Mickey Rourke at the time was having a lot of troubles just being a motherfucker and a party animal. Yeah. And so I realized, well, God, if he can't even get a film deal right now, maybe it'd be a good idea if I sobered up my life. It took me a while. It took me about 4.5 years to get really sober. And started studying Vipassana meditation with S.N. Goenka. I did 11 courses in silence with him over the span of 6 years, and helped heal my nervous system, helped me go through some of my childhood traumas, if that's even a thing. Really helped me heal my nervous system, neuroplasticity, lots of research on that right now. From there, I started studying and getting healing work done by Maori indigenous healers. So they step on you, they use sticks and stones, and they work through the fascia, and it's very cathartic. It can be screaming. I've seen many exorcisms with them.
Yeah.
And so that was, coming out of modeling, going into acting, and then I started working with an herbal company from the Amazon. So I'd studied herbs, superfoods, juicing, fasting, internal purification for many years. And so when somebody turned me onto these herbs from the Amazon, I started putting them into my body, and they totally woke up my consciousness to a whole different level.
Yeah.
And
Were
so I
they
was like,
psychoactive, or what kind of herbs
they were non-psychoactive, but they were so energetically powerful that they turned my energetic field. They turned the lights on in the house, at a really high level, and I'd never experienced something like that. And so started working with them. Became very successful. Won a trip to the Amazon to go meet our indigenous partners. Started drinking the ayahuasca. Woke up there. Had a vision, had 3 profound visions in 2006. One was an amalgamation of my on-camera career, natural medicine studies, and I was doing stand-up comedy at the time, and so Certified Health Nut was born in the Amazon.
Yeah.
Laughed out loud, it came out of the jungle, and YouTube was a brand new reality. So I started posting the footage up there, and that was the dawn of Certified Health Nut, which has been unfolding for the last 13 years, at least. And then I had another vision, which was the spirit of my daughter came to me, and I was not married. I was not in a relationship. And I wanted to have kids, but, I didn't know if I was really ready. I set my intention to connect to the divine feminine and all of its facets and open up my heart the first time I went to the Amazon. Yeah. And I got that in spades. Came home, started interviewing all the women I knew. Hey, you want to have kids? You want to get married? People let me know, hey, that's not me.
What were your thoughts on that? Did you feel like you needed to be married to have kids, or were you down to just have kids with somebody that you connected with?
Yeah, that's a good question. So my parents were divorced twice, both of them. I'd never believed in traditional marriage. I didn't believe in the institution. I thought that divorce and divorce court and lawyers and paperwork and all this stuff was absolute bullshit.
Yeah.
So I didn't, I had no affinity or connection towards it whatsoever. When I came back, I started interviewing all the women that were in my life, and there was a Korean girl that was in my life, and she was in the fashion industry, very successful, went to Parsons in New York, and got all her schooling. But after 9/11, she had problems with her visa, and she couldn't leave, and this was 2006. And she was working with the herbal company from the Amazon with me at the time, and she had some marginal success. She had some success. Yeah. And I said, hey, you're going to win the same trip I did to the Amazon with this company. Aren't you excited? And she goes, well, I can't go since 9/11. My visa's been messed up, and I can't leave the country unless, I leave forever. And I said, I'm an American. That's just paperwork. I'll marry you, no problem.
Right.
And that's really how I tricked myself into marriage.
Oh, wow.
We conceived basically on our wedding night. We were having sex, and I was like, do you want to have children? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, good, because I'm coming in you right now.
You didn't talk about it beforehand?
No.
Oh, that's awesome. That's totally awesome.
And we conceived little Troy right then and there. So my big wake-ups, just to reiterate, wake-ups were sobering up and modeling, Vipassana meditation, Maori healers, and then drinking ayahuasca. My spiritual path for the last 10, 12 years has been marriage and parenting, parenting. That's been my spiritual path. That keeps me on the straight and narrow. And when I deviate from that, my single main goal right now is to be the best father I can and the best husband I can be. And if I fall, just, remind me, help me pick me up, and keep moving forward. Those are my commitments. My mission, and I've worked on this for many years and clarified my visions out of the Amazon. My mission is to raise human consciousness and change all systems. And my vision is clean air, water, soil, and equitable systems for all mankind in my lifetime.
Right.
And so all my decisions and everything I do every day is based on that.
So how do we do that in LA? There's a couple questions I want to ask you before we go into that. First off, with sobriety, So I've had a terrible like opiate addiction, benzodiazepine addiction, and I quit it all cold turkey. I just said, you know what, one day I'm done, and I quit. And so I've had multiple people hit me up and say like, dude, how the fuck did you do that? How did you just quit everything? And so I'm very transparent. I said, yeah, I wasn't fucking working at the time. That's all I had to focus on. So like I honor the people that are trying to work and fulfill obligations and get sober. So I kind of want to touch on that because I think it's an important topic, because then there's a lot of people out there that suffer from addiction or that are trying to get clean and trying to get sober. They can't find a fucking way. So is it rehab? Is it ayahuasca? Is it fucking meditation? Is it fucking what is it? You know, I have my answers for me, like what worked for me, and that was to completely change my perspective and be willing to die to get clean. I knew that I was gonna go through hell to get out of it, and you know, I had 3 seizures coming off everything, and it was fucking terrible. But I was committed, and part of that was just being a stubborn asshole, just being honest. You know, I was stubborn, I was gritty, and I didn't give a fuck. The other part of it was I knew on the other side of it I was going to be a better human as a result. I could be a more available father for my son. So for you, what was it? Did you took you a couple years to get like sober? Was it rehab? Like what worked for you? What was the final, like, you know what, the aha moment where it's like, you know what, now I'm sober and I'm good?
Yeah, I mean, these are all really good questions. And, you know, first of all, I think we're all addicted to something. Second of all, you know, I hear so many times that people get diagnosed as bipolar. We're all bipolar, right? We're the sum total of yin and yang rolled into one. And all the ancient sages have said balance, or walk the middle path, walk the razor's edge. So we always have to balance. We have to balance our biochemistry. We have to balance our physiology. We have to balance our psychology. It's got to make sense, right? It's got to be practical in our world. And however anyone gets sober and it works for them, beautiful, right? Working to find balance is ultimately what you want. And if you're putting in certain chemical substances, it's going to have an effect on the human body. And so you want to balance and mitigate those effects as best as possible, and come back to center and come back to balance as much as possible. The AA route, I think, is a great spiritual path. I think the 12 steps has a lot of relevance in our world, especially taking inventory. I don't want to beat it up too bad. I think it's got its own personality, and the problems I had with that program was being powerless. And I know it's all semantics and linguistics and twisting of words, whatever. It doesn't matter. You still got to stay balanced at the end of the day. You still got to stay sober, clean, clear, whatever you got to do to make it clear for you. And so a lot of times I just saw the old timers there's a lot of self beat up, that I had about myself, and I don't need someone else beating me up if I'm doing it wrong. And when anytime you have a dogma or a paradigm that you're adhering to, people are going to have their different perspectives, whether it's religion or AA or food paradigms. So the fact of the matter is stay balanced as much as possible. The way I stay focused is having my dream and my purpose and my legacy be big enough that I don't want to throw it away with any kind of curveballs that may bring me disharmony. Right, in my life. And so and we're all addicted to something, whether it's the polypeptides of anger or sadness or depression. People can get high off of their porn.
Whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. People can get high off of their own, chemicals inside their own body. So I like to get high on serotonin and dopamine, which I manufacture when I go to the gym in the morning, right? When I hug other people, when I keep a positive gratitude mindset, work on, instead of eliminating X, work on, A, B, and C, and make that be the biggest part of your life. Right. And so...
that makes perfect sense. That's kind of where somebody asked me if I was a raging alcoholic when I quit drinking. And, I quit the opiates, and then I quit the benzos and stuff like that, and then I was still drinking though. And so I was like, well, dude, I'm still like coping like through alcohol. Like I'm super socially anxious, and being around people that I don't know and situations I don't know fucking wigs me out. I had a terrible upbringing, and like I didn't know how to source my own safety as a kid. And so the way that I sourced it was by completely checking out and being completely removed from reality. So that's where, like, when I was an adult, I was like, all this depersonalization and weird shit was happening. I didn't know what it was. So I was like, dude, I'll just take a benzo and I'll slow all that thought process down. And when I got clean, I was like, well, fuck, I'm still drinking and doing the same shit that I was doing with benzos. Like, it's just a complete checkout, whether it be the fear of flying on a plane or going to situations. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to quit that too. So when people ask, like, oh, was it like, were you a rager? It's like, no, it wasn't like a raging alcoholic, but it was still an unhealthy relationship for me. There was no balance there for me. It was like, I knew if I went out, I was going to be getting fucking hammered. And the other part of that was like, I don't want to have judgment of other people that wanted to like choose to live their life that way. Like if you want to drink and you want to take drugs and do whatever, go for it. I'm totally like, that's your prerogative. It's totally cool. I just knew for me, like you said, you hit on something really awesome, that your purpose and your legacy was more important to you than your addiction. And that, like, that's huge. Because for me, it's the same thing. Like, I don't want to wake up with a fucking hangover, because if I do, I'm useless. Like, I'm not going to get shit done. It's not going to put me on the path that I want to go as far as my legacy and my purpose and my passion are. So that's why it's out for me.
Well, most of the things, the certified health nut protocols is really to help me keep balanced in this wild world that we're living in, because I'm not a pretty person when I'm out of balance. Right.
What are some of the protocols so you can share it with the people that are listening?
Breath work, ice baths, cold showers, nutrition, fasting, herbal medicine, exercise, qigong, just basically anything and everything that I do to keep homeostasis or keep balanced in my life. And everyone's self-medicating because we're all just trying to keep balance in a very unbalanced world.
Right.
So we're living in houses with four corners. We used to live in nature, right, or in a cave, right, and there was the fire element, the earth element. We were grounded to the earth. They invented rubber soles in the 60s. We've been disconnected from them. A lot of the inflammatory diseases and arthritis and stuff like that, they're relating directly to being ungrounded, right? So there's many things that are throwing us out of balance. And so to pick up some over-the-counter street drugs or over-the-counter pain pills or Tylenol or Advil or alcohol or, cigarettes. Tobacco is a sacred plant, and they bastardize that by putting addictive chemicals in it, over 400 chemicals in commercial cigarettes.
Right.
So again, the addictions and the adulteration of these substances, and then the implementation to balance our lives out, to me is self-evident. We're out of balance. And so to self-medicate, so how do you self-medicate? Well, one of the best ways to go self-medicate is go to a medical doctor and tell them that you have this psychological pain or this physical pain, and they will treat that symptomology with toxic compounds or drugs, right? Drugs that get you high, diazepam, what were you calling that?
I was on clonazepam, Oxycontin, methadone, fentanyl.
Painkillers.
Yeah, like all kinds of shit. And then the benzos was just to check me out completely. And then when I couldn't get myself going in the morning, take an Adderall. And then when the Adderall was too much, I would take an Ambien so I can go to sleep. So it was a constant fucking roller coaster for 9 years.
And you go to AA meetings, and they're on shitty cigarettes and shitty coffee and shitty creamer and shitty sugar.
Right.
And you're trying to tell me that doesn't create imbalances, massive imbalances in the body. And on top of it, it's okay to be quote unquote sober, white knuckling it, but being on all these medical drugs.
Yeah. And that's kind of,
and that's not really dealing with the root cause of what's going on internally.
Yeah, I had a huge judgment of that because I went to AA when I initially stopped drinking, and immediately you said something earlier and it like struck a chord with me because like I didn't like the idea of being powerless over something. I was like, I'm not fucking powerless over this. That's a choice. And I was hearing all these stories of people like, sharing their powerlessness over alcohol, and I'm like, at the end of the day, it's all a fucking choice. There may be some chemical things that are going on, and I'm not discrediting that. And in any way I'm not trying in any way to discredit AA. I think it's helped a fuck ton of people. Just for me, it wasn't the way forward. It wasn't what I wanted to ascribe to, because it did feel like a new addiction. Like I went from one addiction to another. Like I had this addictions of going to these meetings and feeling like powerless, and now I have my chip that says I'm sober for X amount of days. And I wanted it to be more of like an internal journey.
Totally.
Not something I had to like share with an outside world to get validated by somebody else to tell me that I've been sober for however many days. It just wasn't me. And then I saw the people in there just fucking smoking packs of cigarettes and drinking like copious amounts of coffee. And I'm like, so you gave up one vice for another. And I'm not saying that I'm not guilty of the same in various ways, But it's just not for me. It's not in alignment with what I was trying to accomplish.
And it's steeped in victim consciousness, in my humble opinion, which is powerlessness. Or I'm a victim to my disease, or I'm a victim to my genes, et cetera, et cetera. And so, look, I'm still working on my own mastery, but there's, coffee's a fucking addictive substance. Caffeine's an addictive substance. So I'm still working on balancing that.
Right.
I love tobacco as a sacred plant. It's the shaman's tool. Not to say that I'm a shaman, but the definition of a shaman is one who walks in between both worlds, the spirit world and the physical realm. And so smoke penetrates other dimensions, is word around the campfire, right? So it's utilized for prayers, to bring our prayers into the spirit world. And so it's a very sacred plant. It's got nootropic and good nutrition if you're doing the snuffs for the brain and antifungal, et cetera, because I work with the Hape from South America.
I do Hape every morning,
Yeah, so it's an amazing tool, but nicotine is highly addictive.
Yep.
It's a highly addictive substance, so you get to do that dance, right? And so I like tobacco. Tobacco's an ally of mine. I see that people that are very sensitive use tobacco unconsciously because it's commercially available in cigarettes, etc. But usually sensitive people use it. Why? Because it grounds you to the earth and it clears negative spirits. Right. So that's the use for tobacco. That's its spiritual use. And when we abuse that and we come out of center, then it can cause problems. So tobacco, caffeine, again, porn, objectifying women. This is something that I've been on recently. I've been off of porn now this time around for 5 or 6 months. I remarried my ex-wife. I got really correct. I'm expending, sexual energy is the most powerful energy the human being has, and I'm expending all this energy chasing tail, and it's all an illusion. It's a subjective, mental picture illusion. And the reality is that when you have sex with a woman, nobody's butt or labia is perfect, and there's smells that come out of there. This doesn't come out of porn, right? Yeah. And so there's a dynamic real life experience from that. And the more I can wean myself off of the subjective experience, I can have a whole visceral real experience. I can go deeper with my partner. I can be more honest with myself. And this is an ongoing process. The research is in 100% of males have been exposed to pornography. Pornography is in television advertisement, television programming, the definition of pornography. And then you have, porn all the way to bestiality and BDSM and all sorts of...
You can pick anything. It's like you go down the rabbit hole and it's like, fuck, man. I've been off porn for... I made a commitment to be off of it 2 months ago, and I kind of like backslid a little bit and watched a little bit of porn or whatever, and so I'd do like stupid shit, like I would turn the volume all the way down so there was nothing auditory, it was just visual. And I was, you know what, fuck that, I'm gonna use my mind. If I'm gonna masturbate because like my wife's unavailable or whatever's going on, I'm only gonna use my mind to get off. I'm not gonna use pornography to get there. But a lot of that I think is just me giving myself excuses to kind of check out in various ways.
And that's what I'm saying. Everyone's addicted to something sometimes, right? Yep. And so that's why I like the ice baths and or the Hape, because it cuts the shit right away. Definitely. It's like, who are you? What are you made of? What's essential? Whatever's not essential, get rid of it.
Yeah. And I was giving a lot of my energy to that too. That was the other part of that, was like I would start my day or maybe the middle of the day or whatever, and it's like, fucking rubbing one out or whatever because I'm just a horny dude and can't control my impulses. And it's like, there's so many other things I could have been doing with that energy. I could have been creating so many better things for the world than putting my energy there. I had a girl on the podcast, a woman on the podcast 2 weeks ago who was an ex-porn star. And now she's a naturopathic doctor. Mm-hmm. And it's such an interesting dynamic and like an interesting change. And I was asking her about porn with her husband. Like, are you okay with him watching porn? Do you think it's an addiction? She's like, I think that's kind of a weird word to use for it's pleasure. So like, I think everybody should have pleasure, like if I'm not available to meet him where he wants me to meet him and he wants to get a release from pornography, then that's his prerogative, and I totally support it. It's totally cool. But I was like, wow, it's an interesting perspective from
I think that's the default.
Right.
And here's the thing. This is an open-ended conversation. We're ever evolving. Mm-hmm. The Greeks used to say gnosis, praxis, and telecus, to know, to do, to become. So you know something, then you apply it, and then you become that. So porn's new. It's this type of medium is only maybe 100 years old, right? Photography, and then now with the internet. So it's still new to the human biology, and so it's open for exploration. There is no ultimate bad or good if you look at life or God being unconditional love. There's no conditions, so we're just experience. It's God experiencing itself, and so I don't think that there is any bad or good. But if you look at long term, okay, so people were telling me I don't have respect for women. And not that I'm abusive or, I grew up on the street. So if somebody crosses me, that's going to threaten my long-term survival. I don't care if it's man or woman. I'm going to give them hell, until they get off of me, right? That's street level consciousness, street level. And I'm not living on the street anymore, but that's a big part of my nervous system entrainment, my myelination of my nervous system. I'm very, my threat assessment is extremely high. I call that intuition, psychic abilities, whatever. But my threat assessment in a split second is very high. Right. And if I see someone out of order, I call a spade. And I use profanity, and people don't like that. Society is not very accepted. So it's not that I disrespect women, per se. I treat everyone equal, but I will have to say that I think that there was a certain level of objectification. I grew up on Hustler magazine, Penthouse magazine since the 80s, since I was a child. I think my first ejaculation was thinking about the magazines that I was reading, and so it's entrained inside my nervous system. And people said, oh, you don't respect women. So I'm like, well, on what level? I love my mom. I love the girlfriends that I date. I love my wife. But at what level? Like, okay, let me explore that. Well, now that I've been off porn a little bit more, I realize that the feminine aspect, they're gentle, like a flower. And, if you're going to smell it, you're going to treat it a little bit different. You're not just going to pluck the thing and try and, bring it home or make a tea out of it, ingest the whole thing, the hell out of it.
It's so true, because I was having the same issue, like where it wasn't a disrespect of women, but it was like I had an unhealthy relationship with my mom where there was a lot of like anger and animosity. And so like my wife, was like, I think you underneath a lot of this shit, like you hate women at your core, you have a hatred for them. And I was like, fuck, maybe I do, And so we started like going into that and like where is that coming from? Why is that? Whatever. And then I went to this men's retreat, and there was a hot springs. We were at the Sierra Hot Springs, and it was clothing optional. And it's like, dude, my brain like goes into fucking primal, where it's like, dude, if I see a woman that's fucking attractive, like my instant thought process is normally like, dude, I'd love to fuck that girl, like, because it's like that's what I'm seeing, that's what I'm thinking. And so I worked on it there to be like, why am I doing that? Why do I instantly go to like you said, like plucking the flower, taking it home, grinding it up, fucking it, like whatever. And it's like, why? Like that's ridiculous. So I worked on it while I was there, of like just like honoring the feminine, honoring the beauty of women and the beauty of their bodies and this and that, without getting like aroused from, or without getting aroused and like sexualizing it. And it was awesome. It was a fucking beautiful experience. And I went twice. I went to 2 different retreats, and the first time was pretty fucking hard, and the second time it was like fucking cake. It was good, But it's changed a lot, and I think a lot of it was from chilling on the fucking porn, redefining my relationship with women and the feminine, and not being so fucking sexualized all the time,
Yep.
Yeah.
The porn programs us. What I'm discovering now at higher and higher levels. My wife and I went through a divorce a couple of years ago, and then we just got remarried.
I want to hear this story, because I saw you guys go down to Rhythmia and do the ayahuasca ceremony. I'm fucking fascinated by it, so I want you to share that with the audience if you don't mind.
Yeah, so we got divorced a couple of years ago. We made it about 12 years. We couldn't solve our problems together. I of course, specialize in personal development, self-development, plant medicine, shamanism. My life's been dedicated to that for a long time. When you're having arguments and stuff, I could see what was going on. She wasn't really taking a lot of responsibility for herself and what was going on. Oh. But you can't shove that down someone's throat. They have to see it for themselves. And it was the divorce that we took me as a variable for the sum total of all her problems. We took me as a variable out. So when that wasn't there, the only thing to look back was back in the mirror, right? Actually, the relationships is always a mirror to our deeper selves, right? Whether that's the dark side or the light side. And we all have a dark side. We all have a shadow. So so being apart allowed her to work on herself, to look at herself, to realize that she still had a lot of the same problems that when we were together, she still had. She was creating those. So she started drinking ayahuasca about a year ago. And instantly she asked me to forgive her for blaming me for everything. I never thought that day would come. My wife's Asian, and they have a lot of saving face in their culture. They don't admit I don't know if that's all Asian, but I worked in Japan for a while, but there's a level of saving face where they just don't admit their mistakes. I think human beings in general don't admit their mistakes. And I pride myself going through AA and stuff, of taking my own personal inventory, righting a wrong when I come clear. I think that's just the spiritual path that I walk. I want to be clear from that. So when she said that, I was very impressed and moved. And then my single prayer since we got divorced was to find peace. We're going to be married no matter what, because we have children together. So we are married for life no matter what because of the children. And so I said, my greatest prayer is peace no matter what. So a year went by and she kept on doing her medicine work, and we started working a little bit closer, and there's still things in our relationship. Like, she hated her business that she was in. Amazon.com is transforming the fashion industry, and it was making her just a slave. And she wanted to be in the health and wellness field, but bootstrapping as an entrepreneur, your company, it's trials and tribulations. There's ups and downs in businesses, and I think she really, through the Disney fantasy, she really expected, husband, man, bring home the food, which is traditionally our roles, but everything's changed now that we have an economy, and now that we live in domesticated houses with heating and stuff like that. And the predators, they're not big, large animals. So things have shifted. And so, now that we're divorced, she has to deal with herself. She started drinking medicine, and I continue to do my work and, have my single prayer being peace and harmony. And then we started working together, and I started helping her out with her YouTube channel because she really wanted to get away from her old industry that was crumbling. And then she asked me, she's like, she actually didn't ask me. She was actually came at me with a little bit of codependent kind of sidewinding. And she's like, well, I'm doing all the behaviors of a wife. And instead of saying, hey, I'd like to get back together with you, what do you think about that? She played the passive-aggressive role a little bit. And then finally it came out that she wanted to be more intimate, and she wanted to have a lifelong partner that she wanted to go deep spiritual work with. And I said, okay, if you want to be intimate, I said, come over to my house the next time and let's talk about your fears, right? And the next time after that, I want to talk about your desires. And that was when we went to Rhythmia. And I thought I was going to, hear her desires. And, we've got two houses right now. We're not living together. And how are we going to put all this back together? And I thought we were going to do some paperwork and have some conversations on it. That's not what happened. Right. We started doing breath work. We connected again sexually. And I knew from the 2 years out, and I did a lot of exploration in my own sexuality and polygamy and monogamy and like, what are all these things and what are the meanings of it? Sex at Dawn came out. Yeah. It's like, are we really polygamous, creatures? And monogamy is implied. I never negotiated that shit. It was always implied. And then I started, I explored that in depth for the past 2 years. So I knew that if we had sex, I would open up, the sum total of my emotional body and her emotional body. And I didn't want to go there unless we had some kind of agreements. Well, the fact of the matter is I realized, chasing tail, chasing women, being out in the field, that's going to waste a lot of my energy, especially with my book coming out, Ripped at 50, A Journey to Self-Love. I know that my life's about to get extremely busy, touring, etc. I don't have the time to just be throwing away my sexual energy, the most powerful energy that I have, outside of myself, on porn, with other women, etc. So I want to lock this down. She's the mother of my children. We got to be together anyways. She's a good woman. She's a smart person. She helps, sound off some of my business ideas. So I'm cool with this. And so
Yeah.
we had sex and then did a bunch of breath work, and then we drank 4 nights of ayahuasca, real hardcore spiritual work. And on the 4th night, they had on the menu a wedding ceremony. And so I inquired about that. And they had Agape International Spiritual Center practitioners there. Reverend Michael's got a big influence down there. So I'm figuring, I'm going to get an Agape practitioner to pray us in, for the marriage. Well, they actually used the shaman from down there, and they prayed us in with an ayahuasca ceremony. And I was like, holy shit. And it was the most powerful ceremony I did. I drank 3 cups of ayahuasca. It was the yahe medicine, which is powerful Colombian
Tobacco, right?
Yahe is just a very deep, dark brew that just purges the liver and the bile ducts, and it really goes through the darkness. And I cried during the whole ceremony and was just, really forgiving myself.
Right.
Just letting stuff go out of my heart. And what I told myself is just show up at a different level, show up at a more honorable level. It has nothing to do with your commitment to her, your children, or anyone. I just want to show up on a higher vibrational level for myself,
Right.
first and foremost. And then, and continue to honor and to keep my heart open. Let that be my single prayer. So we got married back, and now we got to worry about joining the houses back together. But
Yeah. How did that, for you, what are some things that came up for you? I mean, we mentioned, what with Yuri, what she came up with, that you're getting blamed for a lot of the things that were the discord in your relationship. But for you, doing the plant medicine, doing the journey that you were doing, on your end, what do you think that, and the only reason I'm asking, not to drudge through your past, but to ask, is there anything that you learned in the process about yourself where it's I probably wasn't meeting her from this place, or maybe I was doing this the wrong way, or just not in a good way? And the reason I'm asking is for the men that are listening to this, how can we show up more for our wives? How can we be more present and be whatever it is? So what things came up for you during that process about how you could have done it differently to make your marriage better?
yeah, well, look, I don't know if I could have done it better, to be honest. I think we're always doing the best we can in the moment.
Right.
The thing is that, and I don't like to play the victim whatsoever, but I think our nervous system is myelinated and trained in a certain level. Now, my stepfather was in orphanages. I was able to go to his orphanages, hear the stories of him being displaced from his family on Christmas Day. Jeez. His brother, who he had never met, we were touring with his younger brother, and just hearing the stories of him getting his clothes taken off and whipped in front of 40 other boys, and how he had to fight and protect himself in there. He didn't have pants till he was 12 years old. Basically grew up poor and barefoot. Yeah. So that type of trauma lived in him. That was transferred over to me. My real father had his own trauma. Anger patterns, real traditional anger patterns, and we are, as men, we are wired to kill or be killed. It is in us. Yep. Right? It also, we got 2 sides. There's 2 forces that guide everything, yin and yang. So we have the savage in us, and we have the saint. Right? It's a good idea to cultivate and get clear on the savage, so that your saint can protect the rest of the tribe. Right? So you want to be that oracle for the tribe. You want to be the leader. You want to be the clear element in the tribe. You want to have that masculine energy to be able to protect and to be clear, and then pull that savage out if need be, right? To either kill something to eat and feed the family, or to protect the family.
Right.
So now that we're all domesticated, we still have all those chemicals, all those polypeptides inside of us, but we don't have an avenue. And we see this in the military with these guys coming back with PTSD. They no longer have a mission. Now you got to fit them back into society. These guys are trained killers, right? Where are they going to fit in? Drugs and alcohol to quell the pain and the angst that's inside of them, and then violence, fighting, bar fights, etc. And so, there is a biological animal component, and that has to be nourished and nurtured. So I think first and foremost to recognize that we have kill or be killed in us, and that's not a bad or a good thing. It just is. Right. And then, also looking at your trauma patterns and looking in the mirror and being honest with yourself. Who am I? How was I brought up? How was I treated as a child? Because this is going to affect how I treat others. And if that wasn't a good thing, then go to the tried and true elements. What are the main healing things? What really works with neuroplasticity? Well, they find out that meditation does. Meditation's a hard sell because we're all so fucking busy right now. So psychedelics are the shortcut. You've got mushrooms, you've got ayahuasca, and there's plenty of places in the world that they are legal. So you can go to Mexico, you can go to Costa Rica, you can experience these things. This is like 20 years of therapy in one fucking night. Right. And this is just told to me at Rhythmia by Dr. Jeff, who is the Passages medical director. Passages is a $90,000 a month rehab center in Malibu, California, supported by the medical industry, which is supported by the pharmaceutical industry, which is supported by the insurance industry. So if you don't have cash, fuck you. Yep. You go white knuckle it. Go do a vision quest in the jungle, or go out to the desert and figure it out for yourself. So the fact of the matter is psychedelics does a lot of heavy lifting, and lo and behold, they've got tremendous research, curing alcoholism in the 50s. Yep. It was solving major problems for us, even in military research. You can watch all this stuff on YouTube.
Yeah.
And so psychedelics are excellent for that. Yoga is excellent, for clearing up this type of post-traumatic stress disorder. These trauma patterns, so that you're not throwing that or, replicating it on other people. So looking at that, being honest, because you have that angst, that anger, that aggression that's inside of you. It's your natural component. However, are you throwing that on your women and children in your life, the weaker people of your life? Well, it's best to either go to a boxing gym and go to martial arts and harness that energy and really fine-tune that energy, or correct it with deep meditation courses or psychedelic experiences to really go into the depths of healing yourself. Right. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, totally. And then the other thing I wanted to ask you too is, if there was somebody that's like sitting on the couch, completely disillusioned with life, like, you know what, my wife sucks, my life sucks, my job sucks, everything sucks, my gut health is terrible, I'm overweight, I'm anxious, I'm this, I'm that. What would be the first thing you would tell them to like get their shit together? To be like, you know what, get moving, let's get this shit together, like to kind of help them reshape and reform into like kind of what you're doing right now.
So the first thing would be get in a cold shower. You're hearing this now, put it on pause, turn that shit off, get your ass naked and jump into a cold shower.
Yeah.
And just figure out who the fuck you are in that primal state, right?
Yep.
Get your balls in check, get your mind in check. Awareness is the first step. Put some cold water on that fat fucking body. Who the fuck are you? Do that first and foremost. Second, come to a man tribe. We provide an atmosphere for people to go deeper into their own stuff, and they're reflected back from real men that are living in the present moment reality as much as possible. More iron sharpens iron, so we're all here to teach and
what is Man Tribe?
Uplift each other. Man Tribe is brotherhood, knowledge, and support. We focus on mindset, movement, and nutrition. We help men get clear on their dream, purpose, and legacy from their heart's desire, not from their mind. We show them how to program their mind to create the things that they want to see in their life. We help them clean up their diet. We help them move in ways that the body can re-energize them. It's not boot camp, right? We do more yin exercises, more qigong, more stretching and mobility stuff. And we do some yang stuff too, but for the most part, it's more yin replenishment. Most people are facing burnout today. So we give them a lot of tools to support them in the world. And the biggest thing is simple brotherhood. Sharing around the fire, what's on the heart, just getting some shit off the chest so you don't carry that cross, that burden with you every day. And we've all done the same thing. We've all been the perpetrator, or we've all been traumatized, or we've whatever. There's nothing new underneath the sun. And when we hear about other men that have been taken advantage of by women trying to say that they made them pregnant, or maybe the guys have raped some girl or was dishonest with someone else, all this stuff, there's nothing new underneath the sun. This stuff has happened before. And so we're providing an atmosphere for men to be vulnerable. When no females are around, it allows them to be more vulnerable, to be more honest with themselves, because first and foremost, you can't lie to someone else without lying to yourself first. And so it's a great way to be honest. We provide breath work. We provide gentle qigong and yoga so men can get into their body, get grounded into their body, get sun on their body. We have natural food, organic, highly nutritious food that you feel when you put in your body. We have herbs and other, elements that turn on the energy centers, really get men high, right, on their own supply. Start doing deep, heavy breathing work, jumping in an ice bath. We turn on that primal animal, right? We do some horse stance, get into your adductors and your glutes and get your core activated, right? Get that primal animal that lives inside of all of us, that wild animal. And so sometimes we do a little primal scream, beat our chests a little bit, and then we get really down to what the heart desires. What are you here to do on this planet? If time and money weren't an issue, you're dead as a doornail. Your best friend's reading your eulogy. What's that fucking story that you live? What is the legacy that you left behind, motherfucker? Yeah. Get that shit out. Become the author. Become the authority of your own life. Become the author of your own life. Write that eulogy. Claim that shit, because that's how life works. That's how you affect them. You create in the material realm. Thought, word, action manifests in the flesh. And so you get clear from your heart's desire, and then you can create anything that you want.
Fucking love it, man. What are some ways that people can connect with Man Tribe and connect with you?
Yeah, mantribe.me is the website. You can go to man.tribe on Instagram, and then we have, I think we're on Facebook a little bit too. We're on Instagram, and then certifiedhealthnut.com. I'm branded across the internet. So if you just Google Certified Health Nut, Troy Casey, I cover a lot of controversial subjects from vaccine injuries and dangers to, I'm apolitical, but I think it's interesting. Some of the activities that Obama has done with Hillary Clinton and the crimes against humanity in Syria and Libya, and I think Donald Trump brings in a different energy. So I like to observe everything on the world stage as a macrocosm of what's going on in my world as well, because we can't expect the world to change if we're not changed, right? So I talk about a lot of controversial subjects. And you mentioned Trump, positive or negative, you'll get shadow banned. Vaccines, shadow banned. Talk about organic nutrition and the lawsuits against Monsanto for poisoning the soil and pesticides and herbicides. You get shadow banned for stuff like this. You talk about pharmaceutical companies, the opiate crisis, etc. So you might have to search a little bit harder, depending on what search engine you're in and how long I'm shadow banned. But the thing is all my content, it jumps the shark. Right. So I can get beyond any fucked up algorithms because I know how to tickle the internet.
Totally. And then what's the book that you have coming out, and where can people find it?
So #rippedat50.com. Actually, that .com just came flying out of my mouth. I don't think I own it yet, but it'll be on troycasey.com. Ripped at 50, a journey to self-love. So that's a #rippedat50, and then it's a journey to self-love. It's about my trials and tribulations growing up, incarcerated as a youth, and going through my modeling career, working in the Amazon as a medicine hunter, drinking the ayahuasca, waking up from that, working with my meditation teacher, and real practical elemental tools that you can use the book as an oracle, or you can read it front to cover and back. It's going to teach you no matter what. So if you open it up for coffee in the morning and what do I need to work on today, or what's the message I need to hear, boom, it's an oracle. It's a very simple book. It's maybe 140, 130 pages. I designed it to be very simple. I don't think we need another how-to diet and health and wellness book. So it's very simple and practical. And it's the journey that we're all on, the journey of awakening, the hero's journey. And there's fundamental, as they say in physics, first principles, fundamental principles that apply to all human beings: hydration, nutrition, nature, relationships, sleep, movement, etc. There's 9 pillars that I teach in there.
Right. As far as diet's concerned, and the reason I just want to touch on this is because there's so much information out there, whether it's paleo, whether it's keto, whether it's veganism, whether it's vegetarian. What's something that you could tell that you believe in that could shift people's state a little bit as far as diet's concerned? Okay, I'm looking for an answer.
Yeah, I believe in the #NoDietDiet, right? So as dynamic beings living in a dynamic system, we ate what was available. So our digestive tract for commercial food supply and farming, I mean, farming started 4,000 years ago in the Mediterranean and 10,000 years ago in China. And so, but our digestive tract has built over, millions of years. So eating whole foods, I think, is very important as much as possible. Nutrient-dense materials. When we hunted and gathered, what were we gathering? Roots, barks, berries, basically anything that was edible. Anything that moves has protein. So insects, different types of meats. And again, we would eat what's available, not just cow, pig, cow, chicken, cow, pig, chicken,
right.
cow, pig, chicken, cow, pig. Yeah. Right? It would be fucking raccoon, possum,
elk,
moose, deer, snake.
Yeah, for sure.
So not all this domesticated stuff, and that's what's creating a lot of gut microbiome upset these days, food intolerances, food allergies, because people are eating domesticated food and they're eating the same food. The body gets used to that, can create an allergic response to it, histamine reaction. So rotate everything, and consume fucking half.
Right.
We're overconsumptive.
Right. Get
into fasting, really optimize the body, really allow the body to go in and heal itself and get down with its bad self. You want to heal something? Pull out everything. Do a dry fast, no water. See how long you can last for that. Meditate spiritually, go inside. To go without is to go within. To go without is to go within. Right. Fasting was traditionally a spiritual endeavor. You think you're spiritually involved, you think you study a little bit of religion, you think you got some Christ in you. Try going with no food, no water. See, really turn on those Christ lights. Figure out who and what you are. Go deeper. Go as far as you can. Do a 40-day water fast. That's the Jesus fast, right? Do 40 days on water. You want to know Jesus? Do what he did. Right. So go deeper with yourself.
Oh yeah. I'm going to ask you 2 questions before we sign off that I ask everyone that comes on. First one being, if you had one person or one book that inspired you the most your entire life, who would that person be and what would that book be and why?
Well, I mean, Paul Chek, he just really knocked it out of the park with his book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. It's literally the Bible of how, it's the Ferrari handbook for operating, a Ferrari or a human being. So I think that document has got a lot of ballast in the world. It ties in psychology, physiology, and biochemistry. It's a very intelligent book, and he's obviously he's an incredible teacher. He's a living shaman, a living master. I really got to give it up for Paul. I just love him. He's got a good sense of humor. He's a badass. He can fucking deadlift 450 pounds still. I just really got to give it up to Paul. I like my meditation teacher, S.N. Goenka. I think he contributed a lot to the world, and I like my gringo shaman mentor in the Amazon, Scott Peterson. He's dead now, but I left a legacy on my YouTube videos about him.
I dig it.
Yeah.
And then what about the next question is if you had one lesson that you learned your entire life, the course of your entire life, that maybe you learned the hard way, that you can save somebody that heartache, what would that lesson be that you'd want to impart on somebody else to save them some of that heartache?
Well, I would just say that, all knowledge is knowledge of self. And the more you can know yourself, and that is an ever-evolving spiral to infinity.
Right.
So the more you can look in the mirror to yourself and be honest with yourself and go deeper and deeper, there's all your answers. Just keep going deeper.
Right.
Keep you think you've arrived? You know, even if you just graduated from college and maybe you made $1 million, fucking throw everything away that you know. Go smoke some 5-MeO DMT. You know, after you've climbed the pinnacle of success that you think it is, go smoke a pile of DMT with a good shaman and just throw away everything that you think you know. Keep coming back to zero. Keep coming back to zero. Knowledge of self, baby.
I dig it, man. Well, thank you so much for being willing to come on the podcast. I can't wait to not only read your book, but attend one of your Man Tribe seminars and check it out. I just got into men's work just recently, and it's been a game changer for me. Like having that group, that core group of men that are supportive, that are calling you on your shit, that you have a sense of accountability with, that you can be honest and authentic with, you know what I mean? And basically open up all of your vulnerability to them and be like, hey, listen, this is what I got. And what's funny is you find that you all have some of the same shit.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And we're not so different like we think we are, you know? There's a lot of similarities there. But thank you so much, and look forward to linking up again soon, brother.
Thanks for having me on the show.
All right, bro.
Thank you for listening to Getting Real with Josh Boyer. If you're loving the podcast, please leave a rating and subscribe. You can follow us on all social media platforms and YouTube at GettingReal_. You can also check us out at joshboyer.com.